Hey everyone, guys, a very good evening. I hope I'm audible and visible. Can you guys see me? Can you guys hear me? A very warm welcome to the session. I hope I'm audible and visible. Can I have your comments in the chat box? Just to have a confirmation if you can see me and hear me clearly. I hope everyone's keeping well. I hope we've been having a great week so far. So today we have another session on CMAT reading comprehension and grammar, session 6, probably session 7 today. So we're going to pick up some good RCs from humanities and also move ahead with a bit of grammar touch-up. Okay. So before we move ahead, let me just show you the RCs we have. Just 2 paragraphs and very interesting ones, touching upon humanities along with some social science passages. Okay. So this is your passage 1. But before we move to the passage, let's also have a look at some tone types of RCs. Okay, we have passages related to tones here, but before we move to tones, the questions on tones, let's have a look at some of the tone types, since we have covered the basics of RCs in the previous session, how an RC is structured, what types of questions you can expect, and we've always decided tones on the basis of positive, negative, or neutral, right? But today we'll be delving deeper into it. We'll be diving deeper, and we're going to figure out, if I say it is positive, what tone type is it? What synonyms do we have for positive? If it is neutral, is it factual? Is it objective? Is it narrative? Is it descriptive? Is it detailed? What kind of tonality does it have? If it is criticizing, is it critical or caviling? So differentiating between the different tone types, that is what we have. And then we move to some good passages. Hi Darshan, very good evening. Glad to see you here. All right, so let's quickly go ahead to some tone types. I'll be starting up from here. So, of course, before we move ahead, tones can be divided into positive, negative, or we have neutral. Okay, this is a basic division for tones we have so far, right? But further, as I said, there can be multiple tone types. For example, if I say positive, it could be laudatory, or it could be appreciative, right? Whether the author is appreciating it in a very, very positive way, or sometimes using very grandiose terms. When I say grandiose, it's like huge, lofty words in praise of maybe a governance, or maybe what the historians have reported. Maybe some excavation was done, and what results did they come up to? What hypothesis did they come up to? Did the hypothesis match with, the facts they came across? So if the author tries to appreciate the philosophy stated, the theory behind something, or some kind of bills passed by the government, so there the tone comes up as laudatory or appreciative or grandiose. Grandiose specifically refers to the lofty terms we use, right? It generally refers to the lofty terms or heavy words used. Okay. Then the tone can be in negative. It could be critical. Yeah. It could be caviling. When we say it's critical and when we say it's caviling, these are 2 different tone types. Okay. They're sisters, but they're different. How are they different? When we say it's critical, it's more or less criticizing majorly. Majorly as in on overall criticism, right? It could be criticism on the basis of how a product was defined. It could be criticism on the basis of, how the public is reacting to a certain rule passed by the government. Okay, so that could be a criticism. It could be criticism by some editorials, criticizing some kind of policy which has been implemented. So on an overall manner, when we criticize something, it is critical, whereas when it is caviling, it is basically criticizing on every minute thing, right? These are sisters, but this one refers to criticizing on every minute thing, as in every small thing, right? So on minute matters, That is what we can call as caviling. Then the tone can be neutral, as I said. So in neutral, we have a few categories. Like it could be narrative, it could be objective, then it can be descriptive, which is again different from factual. Okay, so narrative is basically the sequence of events which are shared, right? When we say sequence of events, it's like storytelling happening. Like this happened, and this happened, and this happened. So sequence of events is what we get to see,
Breakneck speed.
right?
To
Where,
thrive in it, you need to possess one powerful.
whereas if we refer to, guys, am I audible? Am I visible? Right? Whereas if we refer to the objective tone, what is objective? Objective is when it is focused on a certain thing. Focused on a certain thing, for example, if I'm talking about theory of relativity, right? Or Newton's laws of motion. So entire passage revolves around that particular theory, right? So that is when we can call it as objective, right? Similarly, when we say descriptive, descriptive means there are a lot of details being shared in the passage, right? That is when we call it as detailed or descriptive. Factual would have a lot of facts. Of course, facts means those premise, those statements which cannot be counter questioned, which cannot be challenged. Okay, so when there are some stats being mentioned, when it's a business passage and you find some stats, some numbers being shared in the passage on the factual, also you would not have descriptive and factual in the same question as the options, right? So this is what lies under neutral, right? These are the tone types we have: narrative, objective, descriptive, and factual under neutral. Then your tone can be sarcastic. So when we tone is sarcastic, it is more or less, for example, if we say, let me just add more slides to it. Just a moment, guys. So, for example, if we talk about Chennai, right? And if I say drought in a flood prone city, okay? So, what do we see here? Drought in a flood prone city. I'm talking about Chennai here. 2016 or 17, it was flooding, and 2019, it faced drought. Just share this instance with you. So, the news headline is covered as drought in a flood prone city. This is such a big irony, right? This is such a big irony that when you expected flood at time, you never expected drought at the same place. So when we say sarcasm or ironic, these are very close. Same would be sardonic as well. They have slight difference between them, though. This is what ironical tone would be, very opposite to what it seems. Sarcasm is when you say something opposite. It's not ironical though, but it is more like you want to be offensive. You want to offend the person intentionally, right? It's like the comments made by the parents with the kids, maybe amongst friends. You must have seen a lot of sarcastic memes floating around for a particular governance, for a particular movie, or it could be any specific character or any tweet which happened. A lot of memes float around sarcasm, right? And the sixth one, which we just covered, is ironical. The tone can be ironical or irony, right? Then uh, the tone can also be sardonic, which is again more on the humorous side, right? Not really, really humorous, but making fun of someone. It's more like humorous or making fun of someone. Okay, it would be making fun. That is what I'm referring to. So that is sardonic. Then the tone type can be lampooning. Okay, it can be lampooning. Now, what is lampooning? Lampooning is when you criticize, but again in a written manner. Okay. Criticizing in a written manner, that is lampooning. Okay. Excuse me. It's like when we criticize again any specific character, or it could be some of the celebs which are generally lampooned on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter. That is lampooning or criticizing, right? So criticizing in written format is lampooning. Then your tone can be, it could be didactic when the author is trying to teach you something, right? It could be didactic. Then it could be philosophical when there is some kind of ज्ञान being shared, right? ज्ञान का मतलब क्या होता है कि कर्म करो, फल की इच्छा मत करो, life is such, karma, stories around it. That is philosophical. So some kind of theories, right? Wisdom thoughts. That is what philosophy is. Philosophy comes from philein plus sophos. Sophos means knowledge. Philein means love, to love for knowledge. When the tone or the author is more around, trying to refer to some kind of yarn about anything, that is philosophical. Right? Then the tone can be contemplative. Okay, contemplative is when the author is trying to brood upon something, brooding, or it could be self, indulging in a lot of self thought. You know, when you're trying to think deeper, why something happened, this could have happened like this. Contemplative, think around the things which are given. Okay, that is contemplative, or more like a self exploratory, phase when you are thinking too deeply about your own actions or something which might happen. Okay, then tone can be jocular, it could be jovial, it could be humorous. Okay, so that's again when the author is trying to figure out some kind of fun, not necessarily making fun of someone, but on a lighter note, it could be jovial or humorous. Okay, then it could be sagacious. Right? Sagacious means sage-like. Right now, this cannot be a tone type per se, but when the author is very thinking from a very calm perspective, having very strict views about something, that's more sagacious. Uh, then we can think around. I just have to think a few more. There were a lot many. Just give me a second. So jocular is humorous. Then we have sagacious, which is more like sage-like. And then the tone can be, it could be, sometimes very mendacious. That is dishonest. Okay. It could be ebullient. Ebullient means energetic. Okay. It could be optimistic when he seems to be very positive about something. Right. What else? Objective, of course, we've covered. These are all under neutral itself. Then it can also be acerbic or harsh, or it could be caustic, it could be bitter, right? So when the tone of the author gets very harsh, very rude, that could be acerbic. Tone can also be aggressive, okay? Aggressive or bellicose, right? This is another tone type which we can remember. And I think now this would be good. Yes, you can remember this one as well. Condescending. I'll tell you how to remember this term. Condescending or dogmatic or it could be demeaning, or it could be denigrating. Okay. Okay. Condescending, dogmatic, demeaning, or denigrating. So, how do we figure out what is it? If I say it's condescending, this term actually comes from con plus descend plus ing. Okay. So, of course, this term ing, if we talk about this suffix, you know, this is just showing, that term can be used as a verb. It can also, of course, be used as a noun at times, depending on how it is being used. So, con, the prefix, it refers to with or together. Okay. This refers to with or together. Descend means to go down, ascend and descend, right? And ing is just the um, suffix we are using here. This is a prefix. Okay. Fix it before the main word root. So it's prefix, this is suffix. So condescending altogether, if we divide it into word roots, this is what we get. Condescend. That is, if I consider myself amongst everyone, so you guys are below my level, not at par. Right? So con means together and descend means down. So I am above you. That is when we call the tone to be condescending, demeaning, denigrating, dogmatic attitude. Right? That's how we use it. Um, Also, if you look at bellicose and aggressive guys, the tone might look to be seem to be very negative. Sorry. So aggressive and bellicose, the tone might look to be very. It seems very negative, but it isn't negative at all. Aggressive is like when we say that Virat Kohli played with a lot of aggression. ठीक है? तो गुस्सा नहीं था, ऐसा नहीं था कि he was angry, but he had that kind of winning attitude, right? So that belligerence, that aggression was visible on his face while he hit a six. So that is not being angry, but sometimes the author is very aggressive to want something to happen, right? So these are a few tone types we've covered. Of course, there are more, and I'm still trying to catch a few more. For now, we can keep these. Let me just think around a little more. Covered most of them. In case there would be something, I would definitely, write it down for you. Now let's move to some passages we're going to cover. These are the tone types. Let's quickly revise all of them so that we can have them all on tips. Laudatory, appreciative, grandiose, as I stated, it is all positive, right? It refers to when you're trying to support someone, appreciate someone's viewpoints. The author, opines with some good examples stating that whatever policy has been implemented, it's been for the good of the public, for example. Grandiose means using lofty words, again, big, heavy words in praise, right? So it's more like praising something. So that's why grandiose or lofty words are used. Critical and caviling, as I said, these are sisters, right? So critical means you are criticizing someone or some policy or anything for that matter on the passage in the passage from a very 1,000 feet above, from a larger viewpoint, criticizing the entire policy altogether. But when we say caviling, it is more like criticizing on every minute matter, right? तुमसे ये काम अच्छा नहीं होता है, तुम्हें पैकिंग भी अच्छे से करनी नहीं आती है, you don't cook well, you don't drive well. So caviling is like when you're criticizing on every minute task, every minute matter. That is caviling. So critical and caviling, they almost go together, and you would find them in the same question type. But yes, they both are negative. They're used for criticism. Neutral tone types, if you look at narrative, objective, descriptive, factual, as I said, of course, philosophical also lies under neutral itself. Narration is always going to be sequence of events, right? For example, if I talk about Amazon forest catching fire all of a sudden, and then forest altogether, any forest getting on fire, so that is also sequence of events catching, of how fire spread across in a certain forest, which was totally unexpected. So That's a narration. Right. Objective could be when I'm referring to any specific matter. The entire passage talks about, say, Charles Darwin's, um, you know, theory or survival. The theory of survival. So if we talk about one particular theory, one particular objective, the tone, of course, becomes objective. Descriptive is when you have a lot of detailing being captured in a particular passage, and factual, of course, has a lot of facts, premise, stats, numbers being shared. Sarcasm, as I said, it is trying to be a little offensive. When the author tries to be a little offensive, sarcastically trying to demean the given and stuff at times. So he wants that some action be taken. That's why he's demeaning at times. Okay. Then we took an example of irony or ironical. We looked at this example, drought in a flood-prone city. So जहाँ पे कभी flood आया करता था, वहाँ पे सूखा पड़ गया. For example, we took an example of Chennai from 2017 and 2019. Same place which once faced floods, faced drought in a couple of years. Okay, sardonic is again very close to sarcasm, but it's like making mockery of someone. This is more like fun, but on a mockery note, you're making fun of someone. That is mocking, not fun in general. Lampooning, as we stated, it is also kind of criticism, but in a written format, written manner, criticizing someone socially, right? It could be on social media or on a larger scale in a social setup. Then didactic is when the author is trying to teach you something. Okay, you drink Bonvita and you grow taller. So that tonality of the ad itself is very didactic. Okay, philosophical, when we say, it is more like gyan sharing, theory is wisdom, right? Everyone is becoming a philosopher nowadays, so the tonality, of course, is philosophical. Contemplative is when you try to think deeply around some kind of action which is yet to be done or you've done already in the past. Okay, jocular, jovial, or humorous is more on the fun side. Again, not making fun of someone, but the author is talking on a lighter note. Okay. Then sagacious, as I said, is sage-like, not very common tone type, but it is something which you should know. Then we have mendacious, which is dishonest. Okay. The tone of the author can be dishonest at times if you find it as an option. I'll show you some examples maybe. Ebullient is when the author seems to be very energetic, very enthusiastic about anything which is being shared in the passage. Optimistic, or it could also be sanguine. This is also another word you might have found at times come across. So optimistic goes parallelly with sanguine. Then we have acerbic, harsh, caustic, bitter. So I usually to remember this term, from caustic students is always very bitey. So can the tone of the author be. So it's acerbic, harsh, bitter, catchy, caustic, not catchy per se, catchy something, but it's in a very negative way, something that really bites you internally. Aggressive, bellicose, again are synonymous. Um, Not really negative, but that strong attitude of achieving something that that shows in the behavior, shows in certain examples. Condescending, dogmatic, demeaning, denigrating. This is more like, as I said, condescending is when you're trying to show that something is at a larger scale or something is better than that. So most of the times when you talk about passages related to racism, okay, most of the times religion, racism, sometimes the tone there gets very condescending. Okay, so these were the few tone types which we covered today. Now let's move to some passages and let's see if we can quickly, cover more than two passages if possible today. If not, at least we should be able to cover one passage. Okay, it's a humanities passage we'll be covering. Let me just take you back to. Okay, let's start with this passage, guys. This is passage one for today. Quickly go through this paragraph. I'm going to give you more than 20 seconds. Not very tough to understand, I believe. And I'll be experimenting with you guys. I haven't read this passage before. We'll discuss it together. Quickly go through the passage. Let me know once done. And then we discuss. I'm giving you 20 seconds. move ahead? I hope you've at least captured the basic idea of the passage, what this talks about. Let me know if we can move ahead to the next one. Okay. Please let me know once you're done reading. We'll start discussing it. And as I always have recommended to you, please don't forget to capture the GST of the passage before we move to the questions. That helps us in keeping the summary handy. Okay. General idea, structure, that is the role of each paragraph, the functionality of each paragraph. And T refers to tone, which we just discussed, or it could also be the title of the passage we can capture. And we're not spending more than 30 seconds on capturing GST once we're done reading. We are also not reading each and every sentence of the paragraph. Again, you are not asked to memorize the entire passage. You just need to have a skeleton ready before you jump to the questions. That's all what is expected. All right, guys, we cannot keep waiting eternity. Let's quickly get on to what the passage talks about. It says insect eating bats rely heavily on echolocation. Echo means they are sending out that echo, right? That sound, which is measured in decibels. And then echolocation, as in from whichever point they get the reflection, they try to locate the prey, which they can feed on. So insect eating, that's what it says. They need to prey on something. Okay. A method of sensory perception by which certain animals orient themselves to the surroundings, detect obstacles. That could not just be for the prey, but it also be for detection of obstacles, communicate with others, and find food. This is the reason why they use echolocation. While using echolocation, these bats emit a series of short, high frequency sounds from their mouths to nostrils. So this one talks about what is done, right? This refers to mechanism of how it is done, right? This refers to mechanism, okay? And then the next paragraph, like the next part of the paragraph, says since high frequency waves do not diffract or bend. So what could happen, what cannot happen is being stated further. We can bypass that. Biosonar, some bats is so advanced that it allows them to fly in complete darkness, snatch moving insects out of the air, blah, blah, blah. We just skip it, move to the next. For years, scientists have been aware that bats emit slightly different frequencies in different situations. So, recent research has provided insight to how certain physical features help bats use this variability to differentiate among objects in their environments. Many species of bats have elaborate, intricately shaped flaps or nose leaves around their nostrils that are adorned with grooves and spikes. Three-dimensional computer simulations of these non-sleeves reveal that furrows along the top of the, as a result, grooves cause different decades. So how they're structured and what it leads to, how they can use the grooves, that is what the paragraph talks about. The rest, complexity, the nose sleeves add to the bat's ultrasound perception could help the bats perform difficult tasks such as locating prey while avoiding obstacles. So we have skipped some sentences and a few we were able to gauge through. But overall idea is to figure out the general idea, the main crux which is being said by the passage. Okay. And as the very first sentence states that insect eating bats rely heavily on echolocation. So our mind should be ready to anticipate that as we move ahead, it should somewhere touch upon the mechanism, how echolocation happens, how the structure of the bird or these bats, is how the entire body functions, how the different parts of the body are located, they're structured so that they can create that particular sound. By creating different sounds from different angles, what impact it can have. That's what the paragraph talks about, right? Recent, what was done through the research, what results were found, has provided insight into how certain physical features help bats use this variability to differentiate among objects in their environments. And many species of bats have elaborate, intricately shaped flaps or nose leaves around their nostrils. So why are they there? Adorned with grooves and spikes. So what's the function of grooves and spikes? That's what we can expect, right? So if I ask you the tone of the passage before we move ahead, one way of figuring out the tone is, guys, you can try figuring out the tone for each paragraph. Like do it for P1, do it for P2, right? And then you can figure out the entire tones, passage tone, right? That's one way of figuring out. uh, I would suggest that before we move to the entire passage tone, please try figuring out tone for each paragraph so that we get into the minute details. And of course, when we figure out the GST, as I told you, general idea, structure, and tone, this tone is going to be the entire passage tone. Okay? Are you guys with me? Can I have your comments, please? Guys, am I audible? Am I just talking to myself? Darshan, Nikhil, are you guys there? Okay. So, coming on to the first paragraph, rely heavily on echolocation, and there's a lot of description, right? The first paragraph, of course, describes. So does the second paragraph as well. You know, structure of a bat's sound emitting system and the role of each structure. Each part. Grooves का क्या part है? Flaps का क्या काम है? Spikes, what are they used for? How is the sound produced, through nostrils, or the nose leaves around the nostrils, what are they used for? So a lot of detailing is there. And overall tone, if we see, that is also descriptive. Detailing is there, right? General idea, of course, the passage talks about the echolocation. During echolocation, how insect eating bats can create sounds and use it for locating obstacles, communicating with each other, or could also be to figure out the food. Okay, let's have a look at some questions now. And this is going to be more of a structure based question. The first question we have here is a structure based question. As we stated, this S means structure. Structure means role of each paragraph. Sometimes the questions can also be about comparison. Which of the following best describes the relation of the second paragraph to the first paragraph? Right? So it's an interesting question. Why is it interesting? Because the options are really interesting. I mean, if you look at discounts the complexity of a process, that is revealed in the first paragraph. Second paragraph further throws light on a debate over a biological system that is discussed in the first paragraph. Second paragraph illuminates the intricacies of the. Okay, then you have fourth option that says second paragraph explains the results of a hypothesis, some kind of theory that is expressed in the first paragraph, or is it the second paragraph describing the function of physical feature that's mentioned in the first paragraph? Right. So very simple to just compare and see what role does the first paragraph hold, what does the second do, and then relatively where do they stand? Can we just take 30 seconds? Try to figure out the roles of the paragraph. If yes, good enough. If not, uh, just try to eliminate. But for this particular question, I think elimination might not help a lot. Still, you can give it a shot. I'm giving you 1 minute for this question. It's not the passage you have to read. You have to figure out the role, the comparison between the first and the second paragraph. So, quick 1 minute, guys. Then we discuss this question. Please let me know if you want me to take you back to the paragraphs. Ideally, you should, because then only would you be able to figure out, what is the question about. Though I know that I've taken you through the entire passage, still it's a recommendation. Please have a look at the first paragraph and tell me, what role do you find here? What does it do? Of course, the entire paragraph is just about description. But to be able to eliminate the options, it's good to refer the passage, at least for a quick idea, and then check on the options. Okay, this is the second one. Getting a step deeper into the detailing. And then you have this. Okay, let's check upon the question. So best describes the relation of the second to the first. Second paragraph discounts the complexity of a process. The second paragraph rather shows us, how complex it's getting into the detail. So it doesn't discount the complexity. Second paragraph clarifies the debate. There's no debate per se. So there is no debate, so I can eliminate this option as well. Let me look at E now. Second paragraph describes the function of a physical feature. It is the first paragraph which is doing, and not a physical feature, but different parts. So not a very good option to go for. Second explains the results of a hypothesis that is expressed in the first. Not the results, but how it happens. Second, eliminates the intricacies, means a lot of detailing of a method that is introduced in the first paragraph. So shouldn't C be the better choice? I mean, better than D, of course, is not so good, and neither is E. So we should go for C for this. Let's have a look at the next question. This one is a CR question, guys. It's a critical reasoning question. Just have a look at it, and then I'll take you back to the passage. Just have a look at it for 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I'll take you back to the passage. Let me just plug in my system for a while. In the meantime, you can try the question. Please let me know if you want to refer the passage. We can move back to the paragraph. The paragraph which talks about conclusion concerning the purpose of bats, no sleeves. And if you're good, we can discuss it. Guys, can we discuss? I hope we've had a look at the question properly. If true, would most weaken the conclusion concerning the purpose of bats, no sleeves. Okay. So, A, what does it talk about? The option A, if we look at it straight away, so basically we need to weaken the conclusion concerning the purpose of the bats, no sleeves, right? What does the conclusion state about it? Just take 20 seconds and tell me What conclusion do you find from this paragraph about the no sleeves? So, what is that conclusion we're talking about? Rohit, that's a very different question. We're talking about this no sleeves question right now. Can I take this question of yours about 1, 2 question being right and 3, 4 question being wrong and then 5, 6 being right? ये जो हम sinusoidal बना रहे हैं, इसको हम थोड़ी देर बाद बनाते हैं once we're done with this particular question. ठीक है? Just give me a moment. So, it says, for years, scientists have been aware that bats emit slightly different frequencies in different situations. Recent research has provided insight into how certain physical features help bats use vulnerability to differentiate among objects in the environment. And then we talk about nose sleeves here. Many species of bats have elaborate, intricately shaped flaps or nose sleeves around the nostrils that are adorned with grooves and spikes. Three-dimensional computer simulations of these nose sleeves reveal that furrows along the top of the nose sleeves act as a cavities that resonate strongly with certain frequencies of sound. And as a result, grooves cause different frequencies of sound discharged in different directions. Lower frequency sounds are spread more vertically, while higher frequency sounds emit more horizontally. Complexity. Why is this sound being produced from nose sleeves? Just to be able to figure out where might be obstacles we can avoid, or to be able to locate the prey. Right? So basically, these nose sleeves are actually helping them perform different tasks, locate prey, or avoid obstacles. Right? This is what the paragraph talks about. Conclusion regarding the purpose of bats nose sleeves. Now we need to weaken it. We need to tell that it doesn't really help. Okay, or there is no specific, major benefit of using nose sleeves. So he says the sound waves emitted during echolocation are limited to a range of fewer than 100 feet. There is no number mentioned as such. 100 feet, not 1200 feet. What exactly is it? No number has been mentioned. So we can't really use this fact which is stated here as a weakening statement that bats' nose sleeves are of no use. There's no purpose of it. He says when their food sources are stationary, some bats rely on eyesight and smell rather than echolocation. So nothing about the sensory has been mentioned. Okay. Dolphins rely on echolocation. We're not talking about any other organism. They do not use nose sleeves. It doesn't weaken the statement because the question is about bats, nose sleeves, and not about dolphins. Many bats emit echolocation sounds through their mouths rather than through their noses. अब वो माउथ यूज कर रहा है कि नोज यूज कर रहा है इकोलोकेशन जनरेट करने के लिए, it does not impact because we're talking about the purpose. So range of frequencies that bats hear is much smaller than the range of frequencies that bats emit. Now, this is a good option. We are talking about only bats. Our focus is very acute here. We are just specifically referring to bats emission here, right? Two, what we're saying is कि range of frequency the bats here is much smaller. मतलब उन्होंने अगर यहाँ से इधर इको जनरेट करने का कोशिश किया तो यहाँ पे इनको वापस यहाँ तक सुनाई दे रहा है. मतलब maybe if they were here, if they're here, they cannot hear it. So range of frequencies that bats hear is much smaller than the range of frequencies bats emit. Right? If it would be smaller, naturally that echolocation mechanism won't work fine for them. And of course, the purpose is not solved. The purpose of locating the prey, deviating from the obstacles, or even performing any difficult task, other than this. So A is an option that weakens this particular stance taken in the passage about the bat's nose sleeves. I hope this was easily solved by us. It was a CR question, guys. We will find some questions of CR subtly hidden in an RC passage. Okay, so nothing to get scared on. The only thing is you got to figure out what is the conclusion first, what is that we need to weaken, and then we need to counter that statement. Whatever the conclusion is, we need to defeat that conclusion. Just to quickly take you back to how CR works. Any CR, any critical reasoning question always stands good by the argument, how the argument is designed. So in an argument, you would have a conclusion. right? What the paragraph talks about, what's the main stance taken by the author, and then there'll be some facts supporting it. Right? These facts are called premise. Okay, these are basically the facts supporting the conclusion, and you need to defeat it. When I say you got to weaken it, you got to find something which challenges the conclusion. ठीक है, इसके कुछ ऑपोजिट बोलेगा. अगर हमने बोला है कि सपोज एक्स डिस्टेंस से वो एमिट करते हैं, तो एक्स डिस्टेंस तक ही उनको समझ आता है, तो वो स्ट्रेंथन कि इकोलोकेशन मैकेनिज्म इज हेल्पिंग इट. ठीक है, बट इफ आई एम एमिटिंग द साउंड फ्रॉम एक्स डिस्टेंस एंड दे कैन ओनली हियर इट बैक टिल x minus 2, so naturally the statement counters, it challenges the conclusion given here, right? So this is weakening the statement. I hope this was clear. Let's move to the next one now. Let's quickly jump on to the third question, guys. It's an inference question, as the question says which of the following can be properly inferred from the passage. Okay. In the last session, we had a discussion on the question types. The questions can be either asked directly, which we call as fact-based questions. जो generally आपको true false question type या फिर fact check questions होते हैं. ठीक है. और एक क्वेश्चन टाइप था जिसमें हमने इन्फ्रेंस की बात करी थी. When I say inference based questions, this is going to be more of insight based questions, okay, where you need to read between the lines and see what fits in best for you, right? Insights means what value do we draw out of a paragraph. Okay, this is more of insights based. Okay. Coming to the question again, what can be inferred? Not necessarily if the word being used as inference or inferred in the passage would necessarily request you or require you to actually find an inference. It could be a fact which you need to go back to the paragraph, check, and come back. Right? Take 30 seconds, go through it, let me know once done. We'll discuss it. 20 seconds, guys, not more than that. If you want to refer the passage, please let me know. You have to read every statement and see if it is true or not. अगर वो भी नहीं समझ आ रहा है तो पैराग्राफ पे जाएंगे, चेक करेंगे, वेरीफाई करके we come back. That is all what is needed. It's a very simple question type, unless the options are too close. Please have a look at the question. Guys, please let me know if you want to move back to the question, the passage. All right, let's have a look at the question. So true false question है ये simple. मतलब ये actually fact based question बन गया because आपको हर एक statement को check करके answer करना है. Sound waves a bat emits during echolocation only travel parallel. How do we know they travel parallel? Parallelism का तो कोई concept mention नहीं है. We can eliminate this. Spikes found in bats non-sleeves are rarely utilized during echolocation. Dude, where is it mentioned? Rarely utilized or always utilized? In fact, it does say that at times, nose sleeves can be used, but rarely we don't have any, probability of utilization of the nose sleeves. Many insect-eating bats do not possess a well-developed sense of sight. Okay. Do not possess what insect-eating bats? Many. It's referring to insect-eating bats in general. Okay. And we are not categorizing further insect-eating bats की species को. क्या हमने ऐसा कुछ किया है? नहीं किया. It does say many species of bats have elaborate, intricately shaped flaps or mostly surrounded nostrils that are adorned with grooves and spikes. Three-dimensional image simulation of these. As a result, grooves can cause this and do this. Okay. Now, if you think many insect-eating bats do not possess a well-developed sense of sight, there's nothing mentioned about whether they possess a developed sense of sight or not. Right? It does say that many insect-eating bats can have this particular structure, but not specifically about the sense of sight. Low frequency sound waves diffract less. There's nothing mentioned about diffraction or interference anywhere. Eliminate this option. Last of all, we talk about during echolocation, bats do not rely on low frequency sound waves. So, yes, they do not rely on low frequency sound waves. How do we get this option? It says low frequency sounds are spread more. Okay. Last few lines of the paragraph, if you look at here, it's a location based question, guys. It's straight away from the paragraph. It's a fact check question. Okay. It says low frequency sounds are spread more vertically while higher frequency sounds emit more horizontally. Complexity, this happens. So, of course, we can say that during echolocation, bats do not rely on low frequency soundings. They can be both ways, like low frequency and high frequency as well. Right? Both have their own benefits and pros and cons. So, isn't E a better choice over the other options mentioned? All right. Now, what we're going to do is we just have one paragraph, guys. It's a good one huge paragraph. Uh, might not be very interesting, but yes, if you read it, try to relate it, it might appeal a bit. Okay. Just give a quick read, 20 seconds read, and then we move to the GST, 10 seconds, and finally to the questions. Okay. We got some 8 minutes left. I want you guys to not take more than 30 seconds, maybe max to max 1 minute. I'm not giving you more than that. Quickly go through it. Neolithic era, some kind of references will always be there. Just read through it. If you know it, you'll have schemas connecting to that era. If you do not know it, just chuck it off for now. Consider it as element X and move ahead. Okay. I'll brief you about it. Just quickly go through it in the meantime. It's just one paragraph. Shouldn't be taking a lot of time, guys. Just rush through it. Force yourself to read quickly. If there is a contradictory term, however, but although being used, you should know something that follows that term is far more important than what was before. Um, if it is just going on stating some examples, why an example is being quoted is more important than what is being quoted in the example. Okay. And then how does the author opine about the entire structure? Okay. Whatever he says, why does he say so? That is important. What stand does he take? Okay. Let me quickly take you through it. We do not have a lot of time left and we have some questions to cover as well. It does talk about Neolithic era in one of the sentences. Neolithic era is basically the Stone Age when Europe, Asia, Africa, all of these countries were moving from hunter gatherers to more of settlement side. जहाँ पे हम domestication of animals, पूरा construction, food gathering को proper एक farming की form में बना रहे थे. वो एक entire transformation जो हो रहा था. That is the Neolithic era we refer to. Okay. Neo means basically the stone, and new also refers to new, right? So new era, changes that were happening. All right, so passage talks about connections between events described in the folk tales, stories that formed. Folk tales are basically the cultural stories that form the foundation of biblical story of Noah's Ark and the actual events that occurred due to the collapse of the Laurentide ice sheet 8,000 years ago have led scientists to investigate. कुछ कुछ हुआ, कभी कभी हुआ, उसने साइंटिस्ट को कुछ बिलीव करने पे मजबूर कर दिया, सम ऑफ द फाइंडिंग्स। ओवरऑल स्टोरी है, जो समझ आता है वो ठीक है, जो नहीं समझ आता लाइफ में भी उसके पीछे ज्यादा नहीं भागते। ठीक है, सो इफ यू वर एबल टू कैप्चर द इवेंट्स like what it says, like biblical story, one reference, Noah's Ark. I do not know what Noah was, though you'll find them as main 2 points in history. But since you're not able to recall, just let it be like element X. Go ahead. Actual events that occurred due to the collapse of the Laurentine ice. Now, I do not know what Laurentine ice sheet happened, what it actually referred to 8,000 years ago. वैसे भी बहुत पुरानी बात है. Have led scientists to investigate the effects of राइजिंग सी लेवल्स। इंपॉर्टेंट बात यह है कि कुछ तो हुआ इस शीट का, जिसकी वजह से कुछ ग्लोबल वार्मिंग रिलेटेड हुआ होगा, तभी राइजिंग सी लेवल्स की बात करी इन फर्टाइल क्रेसेंट एट दैट टाइम। नाउ रिसर्चर्स कंस्ट्रक्टेड मॉडल्स ऑफ द मेडिटेरियन सी। ऑब्वियसली अब आपने कुछ चीज एकदम से बदलते हुए देखी, तो आपने उसके बेस पे कुछ अपने थ्योरीज, कुछ हाइपोथेसिस आप लेके आ गए, कुछ कंस्ट्रक्टेड मॉडल्स ऑफ मेडिटेरियन सी इन ब्लैक सी shorelines before the ice sheet collapsed and after when sea levels rose. Absolutely, you'll have to consider the pre and post. ठीक है, कि इस ice sheet की अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं, तो इससे पहले क्या सिचुएशन थी ब्लैक सी की और मेडिटेरेनियन सी की, ठीक है, और इसके बाद की क्या स्टोरी रही। ठीक है, we'll have to keep that in check. We'll have to compare that. We'll have to develop the theories, the hypothesis around the two sea levels we are talking about. The researchers estimated. Now again, this is more like an introduction to the entire passage. ठीक है, हमने आइस शीट की बात करी, we talked about the two seas, Mediterranean and Black Sea, जिसकी स्टडी उन्होंने करी और कुछ फ्रेमवर्क्स बनाए। तो क्या हुआ होगा, कैसे हुआ होगा, रिसर्चर्स ने क्या एस्टिमेट किया, वो सारा ज्ञान आना चाहिए। तो रिसर्चर्स एस्टिमेटेड दैट फ्लड कुड हैव डिस्प्लेस्ड, सारी थ्योरीज है, 1,45,000 So this number might have displaced around about these people, and this displacement may have societal effects. Of course, agrarian मतलब जो agriculture practice कर रहे थे, peoples on the coast moved farther inland and likely shared their farming practices with the hunter gatherers. तो ये न्यूलिथिक एरा की जो मैं रेफरेंस दे रही थी कि आप हंटर गैदरर से आप सेटलमेंट की तरफ जा रहे हो। ठीक है, हंटर गैदरर्स मतलब कि जानवर को तीर मार के मार दिया, घायल कर दिया, उसको पका के खा लिया, दैट्स इट। डे टू डे लाइफ जीने से कमिंग टुवर्ड्स थिंकिंग फ्रॉम अ लॉन्गर पर्सपेक्टिव, सेटलमेंट, डोमेस्टिकेशन, फार्मिंग एटसेट्रा, राइट। लॉन्ग रन में क्या काम करेगा, तो वो सब कैसे हुआ था उसकी पूरी स्टोरी है ये, लाइक स्टोरी इन द skeleton nutshell. So agrarian peoples on the coast moved farther inland and likely shared their farming practices with the hunter-gatherers communities in those areas. In fact, this migration may have been a major factor in sudden expansion of farming. So that's again one of the theories. It could have been कि farming इतनी जल्द से expand कैसे हो गया. An event long thought significant by historians who traditionally use the rapid adoption of agriculture in this area to mark the end of Mesolithic era, Neolithic and Mesolithic, and the beginning of Neolithic era. Transformation from Mesolithic to Neolithic. According to the researchers, these findings clearly demonstrate that sea level shifts have potential to affect massive social change far from coastline. So eventually, on the basis of the entire theory, जो detailing है कि agrarian people shifted from the coastlines to the interior of the cities and the countries, these findings clearly show that sea levels shift, Mediterranean and Black Sea में जो shifts आए थे, they had that potential. उसमें chances थे कि they must have affected massive social change far from the coastline, right? It's like जो coastline पे एक lifestyle था, उसने काफी ज्यादा अंदर जो शहरों में, देशों के अंदर जो जनरल जनता रहती थी, उसको काफी इम्पैक्ट किया होगा, वहां पे भी मैसिव सोशल चेंज इम्पैक्ट आया होगा। ठीक है, so how's the tone again before we move ahead to the questions? How did you find the tone, guys? I'm not answering this question on my own. I'll give you as a homework. Okay? And so would this next question be. The primary purpose of the passage. Please remember the primary purpose of the question is slightly different from the central idea question. ठीक है, दो टाइप के क्वेश्चंस होते हैं. एक सेंट्रल आइडिया होता है जो जिस्ट ऑफ द पैसेज देता है, और एक प्राइमरी पर्पस होता है जो पर्पस होता है. ठीक है, दिस अबाउट what is there in the passage, and this primary purpose actually answers why the passage has been written. Okay, what is it doing? Is it relating the findings? Is it connecting the collapse of Laurentine ice sheet to the agricultural development? Overall, yeah. And of course, it has to be a generic answer, so it should not focus on any particular paragraph or any particular statement given in the passage. I hope we'll be able to solve this question as well, guys. Just hold on for a second. Okay, guys, so I would want you guys to please help me out with the GST. One, that is the general idea, structure, and tone. And of course, this particular question. And we'll be discussing these in the next session. That is going to be on coming Sunday, probably. All right, then. I will be taking your leave now. We'll be connecting very soon on the coming Sunday evening. Till then, please keep prepping up. Keep reading a lot. I've been always recommending you to please read Aeon essays. If you haven't picked up yet, please start doing it. And also the next session, we're going to cover a bit of vocabulary words, so please do not miss that. All right. Thank you so very much, guys. See you very soon. Have a very great night. Have a good night.
Acquire it at the Amrita School of Business. Learn about next-gen strategies, new age products, shifting business models, and digital transformation so that you don't just keep up with change, you create the change.